Hello everyone, my name is Cristina Baker. This year I am presenting a project called Retelling the Stories of Business Ownership in Miami, Digital Counternarrative as Resource for Entrepreneurs. This project came out of a writing and rhetoric class at Florida International University in Miami. And this class was taught by Dr. Marta Gierczek. She is also my mentor for this project. I also had some co-researchers on this project who were Michael Lewis, Mia Ramirez, and Tom Matityahu. Also, there is a nonprofit in Miami named Catalyst Miami, which were fundamental in carrying out this research, and they linked us with partners in the community so that we could do the oral histories. The first component of this research project was conducting oral history interviews with two members of the greater Miami community that were not currently students, but they did have experience with business ownership in Miami, which we were looking to learn more about and see what their perspectives were so that a project could come out of their interviews. So I was project manager for this research and these interviews, which helped me experience a lot of the front-end coordination, and it is very impressive how much writing goes into communicating with people in order to be at the same place at the same time, have the same understanding of what this project entails. So I learned and utilized a lot of professional writing in these emails and texts. And also we did Zoom meetings beforehand that had questions so that we could get to know each narrator or interviewee. And these questions all had to be compiled as a group with me and my group mates, and we learned a lot about the types of questions you want to ask in an oral history interview. So you don't want to have yes or no questions because you want them to really talk and tell their stories, but you also don't want to have leading questions where you're obviously searching for a particular answer. Filming was another thing in itself because the questions, they were pre-written, but they had to move with the interview. So if the narrator answered a question and they had something interesting that we hadn't heard about before, then we were throwing in new questions just on film, and there was a spontaneity to the writing also. The feedback given from the narrators also was really nice to have because they appreciated what we were doing. They appreciated having their voices captured and their stories told, which now live in an archive on the Florida International University website, which I have a QR code at the bottom of my poster that will lead you to this website. The next component of our research project was taking the information given to us in those interviews and turning them into a podcast that would be available for free on YouTube. The interviews were also heavily about the wealth gap in Miami and how both narrators were affected by not having the wealth readily available to just up and start their business. We wanted to make the podcast spread information to people that may be interested in business ownership but don't know how to go about it, or maybe didn't ever think that business ownership was for them because they didn't see themselves in the common narratives of business ownership in Miami. The narrators, they had a more community-minded goal to their businesses. They saw a need in their community, and so they wanted to create small businesses to fill this need. The message we wanted to give through our podcast is one that is hopeful, but we also wanted to be realistic and tell people these are the challenges you might come up against. So the writing for the podcast was not only script writing, which involved taking the two stories and compiling them into one narrative that would flow easily and also be informative, but we also had to select quotes from each oral history interview that could support that narrative. The undergraduate students in this class put their writing and the experience of improving their writing to good use that affected the greater area of Miami. The lessons were a lot more impactful because of this real-world element. I would also like to thank our two narrators, Dr. Eva Silo Bravo and Paul Jackson II. And thank you very much for your time.